Hello and good evening and good day, everyone. And amazing to be back here once again. We are here every single day, but I am also still very excited to be here every day and being able to see you here because, of course, I do see some familiar names right here in our webinar room. And of course, I'm very happy to be back here once more with Andreia Trigo. You can see her right here. Hello, Andreia. Great to,
Hello.
as always. How have you been? It's nice to see you here.
I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here again.
As you know, we are always on board with you, and whenever you would like to have a webinar with us, we are right here. We are definitely on it. So it's always great to have you here. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And our topic tonight is definitely interesting. And I can tell you that Andreia, as always, has prepared an interesting presentation. And there are lots of tips that I'm sure you will find useful. And we will discuss those coping strategies. And she will then answer any questions that you will have. She will be happy to help you out, I'm sure. But of course, it doesn't have to be a question. Whatever is on your mind, if there's something you would like to comment or share, this is the place to do it. So don't hesitate. Just go ahead, type those in the chat section, and Andreia definitely will help you out with those. And let me just mention that if you don't know, Andreia is multi-awarded TEDx speaker. She's also a nurse. She's the founder of Enhanced Fertility Programme App, which is amazing as well. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely you should take a look at it. She will mention this, I'm sure, as well. And I could go on like this, okay? She's been helping patients for a while right now, and she's doing amazing job for sure. And we are always happy and grateful that she's coming here every now and then and shares her experience as well. And just before we start, let me just mention that my IVFenses, we are part of European Fertility Society, and Andreia is also helping us out with many things. So we are always happy to cooperate with her. And as you know, European Fertility Society has been created simply because we want to support you, give you some opportunities to meet top fertility experts with those webinars. But there are other things, and there are other plans that we want to just simply help out all the patients that are struggling. And that will be it from me at this point. Let's get going with our topic tonight, and let's start with the presentation, Andreia. Okay?
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. And thank you, all of you, for choosing to be here, because you could have chosen to be doing something else, and you've made the decision to be here to learn about coping strategies that can actually make a difference in your journey as you're trying to conceive. For those of you who don't know me yet, I was diagnosed with infertility at a very young age. I was just 17 years old. I wasn't trying to conceive at the time, so it was very unexpected to me. But for me, it was a loss of a dream that I never had a chance to dream. And it was very difficult to cope with that. These diagnoses ended up shaping all my life, and that's the main reason why I'm here today, because I want to give back to this community. I am a nurse consultant as well, and I help patients who are trying to conceive in my private practice. I am also a senior lecturer and researcher at university, and I am an NLP coach, and I'm the founder of Enhanced Fertility, the program app, which is an app that is available to everyone. It's absolutely free. You can download it, and it has a lot of information, and it has a lot of emotional support strategies as well, like meditation, mindfulness. And it's a way of getting not only the support that you need when you're trying to conceive, but also a way of making sure you access trustworthy information, because I know it can be so difficult to know what to trust when you just go on Google and try to find all your answers. So this was my way of bringing together my experience as a patient and my experience as a nurse to give something back to this community. So it means the world to me to be able to be here and to be able to help all of you. And the strategies that I'm going to talk about today, they are not just strategies out of a book. They are the strategies that have worked for me as a patient. Because after being diagnosed at the age of 17, I was completely lost. And it was only about 15 years later, past that stage, that I looked back and I realized that actually I had managed to cope rather well emotionally. And I started looking at everything that I had done to be where I managed to be. And that's when I've made a decision to work in this area and to give back to the community all these tools that had come in a way naturally to me with some help. And I'll tell you a bit about it during this presentation today. But I wanted to make these tools available to everyone, because a lot of people are diagnosed in their 20s and 30s. And the reality is that you don't have 15 years left to cope and try to make sense and meaning of what you're going through, and then decide on your alternative plan. So I wanted to have these tools accessible to you. So I hope they are useful, because they do come from my own experience. But then also, as I studied NLP, I started making sense of those things that I had done and found a way of teaching them to you. So today I want to start by talking about your emotions and why do we feel the things we feel. And then I want to tap into the roller coaster of infertility, which so many of us talk about. And finally, I want to look at the coping strategies that a lot of people use, but are actually quite harmful. And I want to tell you 6 strategies that really, really work and can really make a difference. And if at any point you want to ask a question, make sure you write them in the chat. You can write them anonymously if you want to. I know these topics are really sensitive, so it's completely normal if you want to do that. And I'm more than happy to answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. So let's start by talking about our emotions. And when I talk to a lot of people, most people believe that our emotions just happen to us and we have no idea where they come from. They are often triggered by a situation, that's what we believe, and we cannot control them. And that is not the reality. And I'm going to explain to you the way things work. You may look back into your life when you were just a child. And when we're children, we have people in our lives that we value and trust. And it's usually our parents, our family members, our teachers. These are people, the adults in our lives that are looking after us, they are educating us, they are showing us how the world works. And all these people around us, they have certain values and beliefs. And as children, we look at these people whom we value and trust, and we say, well, if it works for them, it's going to work for me. And we assume these values and beliefs as our own. And we grow with these values and beliefs. When something happens in our life, these values and beliefs, they are like these lenses with which we are seeing the world. And that is the main reason why some of us go through similar experiences and we might have different views of what is happening. So some people might perceive a situation with a certain pair of glasses, and someone else might perceive the same situation with a completely different view of what is happening. And that's because we all have values and beliefs that are different. And when we perceive a situation in a certain way, that makes us feel something. If, for example, someone, let's say a friend, sends me a text saying that they are not able to meet me for dinner today, my lenses might be lenses of certain values and beliefs, and I might say, well, I'm really concerned because she didn't show up or she had to cancel. Is there something wrong with her? And that triggers in me a feeling of worry or anxiety, wanting to know if she is okay. However, someone else in the same situation might perceive as she canceled on me. I'm really upset with her. She shouldn't have done this. And it might trigger a feeling of being angry, for example. So it has everything to do with the values and beliefs that we have, the way we are perceiving what is happening to us, and the feelings and the emotions that are triggered as a result of that perception. The reality is that when we feel something, we're going to act in accordance to that feeling. And you might remember a time when you were really happy and a time when you were really sad or frustrated or angry. You don't take the same action when you are sad compared to when you are happy. So our actions are always linked to our feelings. And of course, the results that we end up getting in life are all connected to the actions that we end up taking. So we need to start understanding that whatever we're feeling, we are feeling it because of the way we are perceiving the world, because of the meaning that we are giving to each particular situation. And we can choose to change that meaning. We can choose to change our values and beliefs. Because the values and beliefs that our parents had, that our grandparents, our teachers, those people who cared for us, maybe those people didn't go through the same challenges that we are going through. So the values and beliefs that were okay for them, that worked really well for them, are not the ones that are working for me. So the good thing is that we can change them. And that is the first thought, I would say, is that the knowledge that the way you perceive the world is not something static. It's something that we can adjust, something that we can change. And I added this sentence here because it summarizes so well what I've been trying to explain, that the life that is happening to us, we don't experience that life. We experience whatever we believe in, and we experience whatever we are focusing on. If we believe that something is true, that's what we are experiencing. If we are focusing on something, that's what we are experiencing. So when we go through fertility challenges, whatever you are believing in that moment, if you believe that whatever is happening to you is taking you where you are meant to be, that life is happening for you, that everything is going to happen in the way that it needs to happen. If you are focusing on the fact that you've learned a lot about your body so far, or that you've gained a lot from all the bad experiences that happened to you, you're going to have a very different experience of life. If you are, for example, in the belief that life is not working for you, and you're focusing on all the things that you don't have, all the things that are missing in your life. So when I was diagnosed at the age of 17, I was really, really upset. And believe me, I didn't have this knowledge. I still didn't know who I was as a person. I didn't have, my values and beliefs weren't completely formed at that stage. I was just a teenager. So I really didn't know what to think about the whole situation. But I was very sad and depressed. about not being able to have children. And when I started analyzing why am I feeling like this about this situation, I've realized that infertility is a loss. And the reason why I was feeling sad and depressed was because I was losing my identity. And what do I mean by this? Of course, I'm much more than my ability to conceive. I always say that. But at the time, I was a student and I was a sister, a daughter. I was very active. So I had all these different roles in my life that made me who I was. But as part of my identity was also being part of a very big family. Part of my identity was wanting to carry on with the growth of that family. So I lost part of me when I learned that I couldn't have children. Infertility is also a loss of, it's like a constant cycle of hope and despair, because when you're trying over and over again, you're hoping and then it doesn't happen, and you feel the loss and you are in despair, and then you feel hopeful again. There's also the loss of miscarriages. There's a loss of what baby making should look like and should feel like and should be like. There's the loss of relationships. The relationship with your partner and the way it should be, or you feel that it should be. Relationships with other people, with your friends maybe, or with family. There's also the loss of what you thought that family would look like. There's the loss of dreams. And in my case, dreams, I never had the chance to dream. It was still just a very tiny seed in my head. And there's the loss of all the expectations that we once had for our lives. The idea that maybe one day we could just grow up, get married, have children, and live happily and die. That's what I wanted at 17. So there's the loss of all of that. And what I asked myself was, is it normal for me to feel sad, frustrated, and angry? Absolutely. I mean, after all this loss, it would be completely unrealistic for me to be happy as if nothing had happened, or be completely happy if something amazing had happened. That is not realistic. It's a huge loss what I've been through. It's a huge loss what all of you are going through. So if you're feeling sad, frustrated, and angry, just know that it is absolutely normal. It's a normal response. What I've realized as well is that even though this is a normal response, it's not a response that should last forever. And I've made a decision very early on that even though I didn't know how I was going to cope, I was going to be happy and okay, and I was going to live a meaningful and successful life. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I remember, one of those moments where I was crying and I was asking, why me? Why is this happening to me? And I felt this energy inside me, and I've made that moment of decision. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to cope, but I know that if I can cope with this, there is nothing in life that I'm not able to achieve. And this is going to be a driving force for everything that I want in life. And everything that I want is to be happy. So everything that I do from that point onwards was to make myself happy, not because society told me that I should get married or that I should have kids, but because I want them. So there's a decision that we all need to make. And it's a decision that we are able to cope, that we are entitled to happiness, fulfillment, no matter how bad our situation is. And we have that ability within us. So it's okay to be sad, frustrated, and angry. It's absolutely normal, but it's also okay to have moments when you feel happy, and to have moments when you feel like life is working for you, that you have so much going on for you. And this takes me to what lots of us describe as the roller coaster of emotions in infertility. And there's a very technical name, and it's called the process of grief. And what looks like a very linear process of grief is actually not linear at all. And this shows us that in the beginning, when you first realize that things are not happening the way you thought that they were going to happen, what you find is shock and denial. You're confused. This is not happening to me. And I remember this day, the day of my shock and denial, very well, because I was very young. I remember going to the doctor and the doctor telling me, I think you don't have a uterus. And my first question was, does that mean that I'm not going to have children? And the doctor said, yes, I don't think you'll be able to have children. And I asked the same question, does that mean that I'm not going to be able to have children? And the doctor answers the same way, of course. And I was in complete shock. The world had disappeared beneath my feet, and I couldn't believe those words. And that whole day is sort of blurry. And there were times when I was very angry with what was happening to me. And I was asking, why is this happening? Frustrated, why me? I haven't done anything wrong. I was sad, I cried, I was depressed. So all of these things that we see here in this process of grief, I've totally seen them. And I felt them in my body. And there was a moment when I said, when I've made that decision to cope, and I wouldn't say that every day from that moment on was absolutely happy, it wasn't. But it was in the most challenging days, the days when there was a trigger, when maybe someone did a pregnancy announcement, or one of those terrible triggers that happen to us, when people make comments that they don't know are hurtful. Those are the days when that commitment that I've made to be able to cope helped me the most, because I had the intrinsic belief, unbreakable belief, that in the end everything was going to be okay and I was going to have a meaningful life. So if there's anything that you can take out of today, is that choose, make your choice. What is the belief that you want to believe that is going to be with you in good days and in bad days? And in those bad days, it's going to carry you up, even when you don't feel you have the strength to carry on. As part of the last stages of this process of grief, you might notice that there is acceptance. And here, we don't talk about accepting a life without children. We're talking about accepting things as they are and accepting that maybe there's an alternative plan that can take you to where you want to go, that can give you the happiness that you want to give. And that's when you start returning to a meaningful life. And I'll give you an example here. I did a lot of analyzing of what I want. Why do I want children in my life? What do I think is going to give me? And I've realized that I wanted the unconditional love. I wanted the sense of family. I wanted the connection. I wanted a loving partner. And I've realized that I don't necessarily need to have children the normal way in order to get everything else that I want to get. And that's when life started unraveling for me. And that's when I started feeling that there was meaning in my life, that I found my husband, and that we found so many different ways of feeling fulfilled and empowered, and that we are giving back to this community. So I want to tell you that even though it's normal to feel sad, depressed, angry when something bad happens, and sometimes lots of things happen that are bad, and it's normal to feel sad and depressed, but there's also a way out of it. And it's okay for you to allow yourself to return to a meaningful life. And the fact that you are feeling happy does not invalidate all the pain, all the sadness, or anything that happened. All your feelings are valid, no matter where they are in this process of grief. Now, if we think about all these feelings which everyone goes through when they are trying to conceive and they're not being able to, and we think about the last year and a half when we had a pandemic, well, all these feelings are exacerbated because people who were trying to conceive had their clinics closed. They weren't able to go through treatment as they planned, and they felt the clock ticking. So they didn't have just all the anxiety and the stress that is natural for the process, but they also had a lot of reproductive uncertainty. There was a lot of uncertainty about their own health, if they were going to be okay, or if they were going to get the virus. There was a lot of financial uncertainty. People were losing their jobs. There was a lot of family and friends uncertainty. Are they going to be okay? Our relatives, the people that we love so much. And there's the global uncertainty. So when we think about the feelings that a lot of us were already feeling, and on top of it, we put a pandemic, well, things are just, it's normal if all of you are feeling a bit worse than you were the year before. Know that your feelings are valid and it's absolutely normal. And that happens because we tend to get anxious every time that we go through something that is new, ambiguous, or unpredictable. And our infertility, when we initially find about it, it's something new, it's something ambiguous. We don't know what it might mean. We might or may not be able to get pregnant, and it's unpredictable. We don't know how it's going to turn out. When we have fertility treatment, it's something new. It's something ambiguous and something unpredictable. So just know that whatever you are feeling, acknowledge it, because it's in response to your environment. It's something that is happening to you, but you are not your emotion. So you don't need to stay in that emotion. Acknowledge it, and then we can release it. And this is something that I've reflected on for a long time, and I keep using it over and over again, that we may not choose the situations that are happening to us. I didn't choose to be born without a uterus. You didn't choose your fertility problems, but we can choose how we respond. And I could have made a choice very early on to have a very sad and frustrated life, angry at my body. But how miserable would that be? I would have wasted 50, 70 years of my life being angry. Or I could have chosen to respond in a way that would bring me happiness, and saying, I can choose the ultimate power I have in my life. The only thing that no one can take away from me is this power to choose that I am going to be happy and live a meaningful life no matter what. And what is happening to me is going to give me force and drive to achieve everything else that I want to achieve. Now I want to start going deeper into the coping strategies themselves. And I found this really interesting study that was done during the pandemic, and it looked at 92 women from the US and Canada, and these women had their treatments cancelled, and 52% of them had depression, and a lot of them said there had been a decline in their quality of life and in their mental health. And they were looking at the impact of cancelled treatment in their mental health. And here you can see the mental health impact. 0 is none. Above 0, it's the positive impact from 0 to 5. And below 0 is the negative impact. And we can see here in my pink circle that most of the people have had a negative mental impact when treatments were suspended as well. And then this study looked into a bit of more detail into how did people cope with it. And if we look here, the strategies that people used more often, and it might be that you can relate to some of them, it was hiding feelings. So not telling other people that they wanted to get pregnant, or fantasizing, catastrophizing about how things might turn out. So thinking that things will go wrong, for example. Or some people used food, drugs, and alcohol to cope. Some people use defensive pessimism, trying to keep their expectations really low. Have you ever tried to do that? Does it really work? And then telling themselves to stop when they were trying to think about wanting to get pregnant. So these were the strategies that were used most often. And it might be that you see some of these strategies as some of the strategies that you might have used yourself in the past. But the reality is that these strategies are not really that helpful. They don't change your outcome, but they also don't make you feel better, and they don't allow you to process what is happening. So the study then looked at coping strategies that had the biggest impact in the mental health. And the strategies that they noticed had the biggest impact was having an optimistic personality trait, getting support from partners, having a greater acceptance and benefit finding, meaning that you can find something good in what is happening to you. And I know sometimes it's really hard to see what's the good in all of this. Lower levels of defensive pessimism, so low levels of trying to keep your expectations low, and more social support seeking. So people who were engaging in this kind of coping strategies were able to have more mental health improvements compared to the people who were using the other coping strategies. And what I take out of this study is that if we change the way that we are perceiving the world around us will change. And that's why if we get the support that we need from our partners or from social circumstances, if we're trying to find something good, no matter how bad the situation is, if we have a more optimistic approach, our perception of the world is going to change. So now I'm going to share with you the 6 strategies that have made such a big difference to me, okay? And the strategy number 1 is not asking, why is this happening to me? And believe me, I've asked this question to myself more times than I can count. I remember, if there's anything that I remember from my 17 years of age, 17, 18, and this should be one of the happiest times in my life, because I was just starting university. And what I remember is being in my bedroom, crying and asking, why is this happening to me? Night and night and night again. And I remember my dad saying, it's not up to us to ask why. One day you will understand. And he said it over and over again. It's not up to us to ask why. One day you will understand. And I believed him. I believed my dad that one day all of this would make sense. And if I look back now, it does make sense to me. And it might be that you have something in your life, maybe not related to fertility, but maybe related to your work or relationships and where you are right now. Maybe you never thought you'd be there. Maybe you are in a relationship and you've suffered maybe many times before every time you had a breakup. And now it makes sense why that breakup had to happen for you to find the person you're with right now. And this happens all the time in life. So know that even though you don't see a reason for something that is happening to you, there is a reason, and one day you will understand. So asking why me just consumes us completely. And the biggest advice I can give you is just keep reminding yourself that one day you will understand. And if you believe that, one day you will indeed understand. The second strategy that helped me quite a lot, and it happened almost around the same time when I learned that I shouldn't be asking why me, was to challenge my thoughts. And as I have told you already, I was born in a very large family, and I always thought that I would grow that family, that I would continue that family. So for me, the thought that I wasn't able to have children triggered a lot of emotions, maybe that I wasn't good enough or that my life had no meaning. So I learned that I need to challenge those beliefs, because the beliefs that I had were from all these parents and teachers that were useful to them, but they didn't have infertility. They didn't know what I was going through. So I had to challenge my thoughts. And we all have this tiny voice in our head. So it's good for us to challenge it. And I brought here a slide that says that around 80% of people who are trying to conceive have these voices in their heads, this negative thinking on a daily basis. And I've put here an image of some of these thoughts that I was sent on Instagram. It's a bit tiny, so we can't read it very well, but some of them say, I'm never going to be a mom. My body is useless. What if I miscarry again? So you might relate to some of these thoughts. And when we have 80% of us are having these thoughts on a daily basis, we need to take control, because you can choose which thought you are going to listen to. And this strategy I'm going to give you next has worked for me, so I know it will work for you. So what you need to do is you need to get a table like this, and you're going to write on the top thought, emotion, evidence that supports it, the evidence that refutes it, your conclusion, and then the emotion. And I'm going to give you some of the thoughts that I've experienced, some of the thoughts that my patients have experienced, and I'm going to explain how it works. So the thought that might be coming on a regular basis might be, for example, that my life is meaningless. And this triggers an emotion in me. And I've written here that it triggers hopelessness. And I say that it's at an intensity of 9 out of 10. So it's very intense. And the evidence that supports it, the reason why do I think my life is meaningless, is because I don't have children yet. And our brain does these 3 first columns very easily and very quickly. We are doing it all the time. What our brain doesn't do such easily is the next column, the evidence that refutes that thought. And the evidence that refutes the thought that in this case would be, well, I actually have a partner and he loves me. I have friends and I have a job that I really enjoy, and all of these things bring meaning to my life. So our brain doesn't do this automatically, so we need to write it down. And the conclusion is going to be a merge of the evidence that supports and the evidence that refutes. So it would be something like this. Even though I don't have children, my partner, my friends, and my job bring meaning to my life. And when you reach this conclusion, you can notice the emotion that you had initially has softened down a little bit. So in this case, my hopelessness reduced from a 9 to a 6. So we can play with this table as much as you want. And I usually print it, I write it down, and I keep it in a place where I can see it. So you can write whatever thought you have, that your body isn't doing what it's meant to be doing, or that this cycle is not going to work. Whatever thought you have, write it down and write the evidence that is going to refute it. Now, strategy number 3, releasing the judgment. I mean, how many of you have judged yourselves for feeling sad, angry, frustrated, happy, anxious? All of us have at some point. But this journey is hard enough as it is. So let's release the judgment of whatever we're feeling. And let's release the judgment as well of whatever is happening to us. Because whatever is happening, every situation is just that. It's one situation. It's not necessarily good or bad. Good or bad is the judgment we are giving to that situation. And that's why nothing has meaning except the meaning that we are giving it with the judgment that we are making. So there's different ways for us to remove these judgments. Step number 1 that you can try is recognizing that you are actually judging yourself or judging the situation. Observe what you're doing, notice the words that you're doing, and then letting it go. And the letting go is the hardest part, isn't it? But it's a good strategy. The second step that you can try to reduce the judging is to do positive judging, meaning that for every negative thing that you judge, if you find yourself being really judgmental about yourself, for example, find something good about yourself. For every negative judging, you need to find a positive judging. And number 3, it's one that I use all the time. When something is happening that is not what I was expecting, and I'm judging it and giving it a meaning that this is bad. Why is this happening? I cannot believe it. I try to think, what else could this situation mean? What is it in this situation for me to learn? Because maybe I didn't get the job because maybe there's an even better job ahead of me. Maybe this cycle didn't work because it's the next embryo that is supposed to be my baby. So what else could this situation mean? Strategy number 4, and there's only 5, I promise. Avoid avoidance. And I know I've done this all the time in the beginning, and I know probably all of you have done it at some point. Avoiding pregnancy announcements, avoiding baby showers, avoiding family reunions or reunions with friends where there's going to be talks about babies. But if we look at that, at the research, avoidance is more likely to give you the resilience that you need to feel that you can cope with what is happening to you than avoiding. And let's be honest, we cannot avoid these situations because they are completely outside our control. I cannot avoid pregnancy announcements for the rest of my life. So I need to be able to find a way of coping with them. So it may work short term, and it might be that in the beginning, it's something that you really need to do, but it's not something, avoidance is not something that we want to use long term. Just recognize that the situations that are being triggers, they are completely outside your control. And we need to find the tools inside us, the coping mechanisms inside us that allow us to manage those situations in a way that we feel okay, and not in a way that makes us feel afraid, resentful, fearful, frustrated. So a thought that I usually have is one where I start questioning myself. If I avoid these situations, what is it costing me? Is it costing me friendships? Is it costing me opportunities? Is it costing me the option of meeting new people? And how has avoidance really impacted on my life? Am I more resilient, or am I more fearful of what's going to happen? How has it affected my relationships? And the gold question is, do you actually feel stronger and more resilient for avoiding? We don't. And I know it's good short term, but it's not a good strategy long term. So there's a lot of work that we do to feel stronger, to stop avoiding these difficult situations. And that's something for a completely new, different webinar, Caroline. Strategy number 5, claiming your identity. And we talked a lot about our identity, who we are, and we are more than our ability to have children. We are more than our ability to have our genes passed on from generation to generation. You are a human being. You have things you enjoy. You have a job, you have family, you have friends. So I've realized very early on that all these years after that diagnosis, because that diagnosis took my identity away from me in that split second when I realized that I couldn't have children. But all the years past that stage were the years of choosing who I wanted to be as a human being. It's an amazing opportunity, because if that hadn't happened to me, I would probably just be whoever the world wanted me to be. So reclaim who you are and your identity. What are the things that you enjoy doing? The things that you are really good at, that make you stand out. The things that make you feel alive. The things that make you smile, that make you feel blessed, that make you feel really happy. The things that you do that bring joy to your life. What are the things that make you feel like you truly belong? That you're doing your best job? What makes you feel loved? And how can you live life on your terms, regardless of what is happening to you? And this is the moment when you're reclaiming your identity, that you start trading your expectations, and you are expecting life to give you X, Y, and Z, the job, the partner, the child, and you trade those expectations for appreciations of what you already have, because your life is already blessed. There's so many things that you have in your life. Something that is good within you. Your heart is beating inside you without you having to work for it. Your lungs are breathing for you. They're keeping every cell of your body alive. Appreciate every thing that is good in your life, and your life will change in that moment. And the last strategy, and I promise then we'll go for question and answers, is to create your support plan. As you've seen, part of that research study was all about getting the right support. And I usually say that, like when we go to the dentist, when our tooth is hurting, that's probably not the best strategy. We need to have a preventative plan. We should really start creating our support plan when we are good, because when we feel bad, it's really hard to pick ourselves up if we don't have a plan. So the strategy I usually give everyone I see, all my patients, is to create your emotional support team and create a table. And these are people that you value and trust, people with whom you can talk to, who understand what you're going through. Someone who can be your shoulder to listen when you are in a really bad day. And it might be healthcare professionals, counselors, friends. It might be an online forum, social media, an app. Write down their name and how to contact them, because those are the people who are going to be there for you when you have a bad result, when you do a pregnancy test and it's negative. Those are the people who are going to be there for you. The second part of this support plan is to create your unique support plan. When you start understanding how your body and your mind responds to the situations that are happening to you, and you write the situation down and the strategies that have worked. And some of them you might even think ahead. So you might write a situation, for example, where you're having the 2-week wait and it's a very anxious time during treatment. And you might write down strategies which you think are going to be really helpful. Calling a friend or watching a movie. Or if you talk about writing down a situation that has, for example, when you've done the pregnancy test and it was negative, strategies that have worked. Or you might say contacting this person, or writing down a list of all the things that are going on for me. So writing down your own personal plan can be extremely helpful. And finally, know that life is working for you. Life is not working at you. Things are not just happening around you. Everything in life happens for you. And one day you will understand why everything is going to have a meaning. And that was it. I think I will take all your answers if you want to type them in the chat. And as you're typing and processing everything that I've just said, I'm just going to tell you that our app is a bit all over the world now. You have lots of these strategies and more. We have support groups that happen twice a month. So you have lots and lots of tools that are available, and they are free. And it's just a great way to feel connected and supported in such a challenging time during treatment. We are a bit everywhere. We have lots of awards, so definitely do check us out. And of course, if you want to get in touch via email to talk about your personal situation, I'm more than happy to do that on a one-to-one as well. Thank you.
And thank you so much. As always, you have thoroughly explained all those strategies, but you also shared so much your own experience, and I think that makes it make it a bit more like anyone can relate really because of that. And thank you so much. As always, it's been amazing to see also those statistics that you have provided. Definitely interesting, especially with everything that is going on in the last year, etc. So thank you for this as well. And well, now it is time for questions, comments, anything that is on your mind, you can type this in. Andreia is here to support you. So don't hesitate. Use this time, this opportunity to ask her anything that's on your mind. But of course, it's also possible, as Andreia mentioned, you can get in touch with her directly if you prefer this way. It's definitely okay as well, right?
Yeah.
So let's have a look. Natalie actually has one question. Definitely something that I think is also a struggle for many patients. What can I and my partner do to stay on good terms and deal with emotions when trying to conceive? I feel that we are not on the same page anymore. We are both tired and sometimes we don't feel like talking about this. I am more nervous because of this situation as well. Anything you can advise?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And Natalie, I would say that number one, you're not alone because I hear it all the time. And the biggest challenge is that both of you never thought that you'd be in the situation that you are now. And for a lot of people, they never had to cope with anything this challenging in their lives before. So it can be quite difficult. And you're both independent people trying to cope with it as individuals, but also trying to cope with it as a couple. As a couple, it's good to understand that everyone copes differently. And I don't know how your partner is, but usually men tend to be a bit more quiet and they don't like talking as much or sharing as much. And women usually like to analyze things and talk it over. And sometimes that gives the impression that people are not as caring as we are, but that is not the truth. That just means that they are coping with things in the way that they know how to cope with things. It would be really useful, I usually say, to have time for both of you to talk about your journey and the things that you want to do. But it's also good to have times when that talk is off limits. So you should have protected time when you're not trying to conceive, you're not talking about trying to conceive, and you're just enjoying each other's company. And you're going to see that, for example, if you schedule half an hour on a Monday at 7 p.m., we're going to talk about it. We're not going to resolve all our issues, but we're going to resolve what we can. But before that time and after that time, we're going to enjoy ourselves as a couple. And that tends to help because otherwise it can almost feel like you're talking about it 24/7. Another cool tip that I have is to have separate areas in the house where you don't talk about it, because otherwise it can contaminate everywhere you are. So having a dedicated space and time to talk about these problems, and then allowing yourselves as a couple to enjoy each other's company, can also be very, very helpful. And of course, when you're talking to each other, just being really honest. And it might be that when you're honest, when you're sharing, and when he's sharing, you realize that there's a lot that is actually bringing you together instead of pulling you apart. I hope that that has been helpful.
Thank you so much. Definitely, the strategies you have added, yeah, definitely interesting ones. But also, I think that it's important to also get some time off, as you mentioned, from that all um, trying to conceive matter. That's for sure. Thank you so much. And actually, Natalie has added one more question. Okay, so when to consider seeking out expert help? Are there any support
Mm-hmm.
also for men?
Yeah, so I think you should seek expert help if you feel that you're not able to have a conversation with each other without, being angry, and you're not being able to find a consensus. Okay, so if you're not able to communicate effectively with each other, I think it can be quite useful to seek expert help and to have that third person as a mediator to teach you some of those communication strategies and to nail down exactly what is happening. Because sometimes when we're talking and we're very emotional, and all of these topics are very emotional, we tend to say things that we don't really mean. And yeah, so I think when things start escalating like that, bringing in a third person, an expert, can really help. And there are support groups for men. I know that a lot of men don't like Facebook, but Fertility Network UK do have one on Facebook. And recently there was also a new something by the Man Cave. He is also on Facebook and he's on Instagram, Kevin. I think he's done a webinar as well here for My IVF Answers. And he's been through it. He's very vocal about his story, and he's trying to create that network from men to men who are trying to conceive. So that could also be a good resource.
Yes, that's correct, of course. Chris was here for sure. So first, you can definitely check his Instagram. I know he's posting quite often. You can check his podcast, and possibly that will help. And there is a webinar also on My IVF Answers. IVF Dad, right? You can look for him.
Yeah, it's IVF Dad is one, and the other one is called The Man Cave, Kevin.
Yes.
And yeah, both
that's right.
them.
Sorry, true.
So lots of places for men to find help as well.
Exactly, and it's amazing that it's still, there are options. So, well, Natalie, what we can say, best of luck and fingers crossed that you will be able to get on the right track with you and your partner, of course, as well. Thank you so much. And at least at this point, I don't see more comments or questions. However, again, if you want, just go ahead, type this in. If not, it is still okay, right? Because you can always get in touch with Andreia, and we know that you are here for a reason. So we believe that this is helpful for you. So thank you for being here with us for sure. And if you don't have any other questions, we will be finishing. But there is always a possibility for you to reach out for sure, right, Andreia?
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to answer your questions via email. I know it can be a bit challenging to talk about emotions on screen, but know that you are not alone, and we are here to support you. We have a team in-house of psychologists as well. So do reach out if you feel you need the help, because we are here for you. And just send me an email. Just send me a message on Instagram. Anywhere you find me, send me a message and we will be here for you.
As always, I'm not sure if you've seen, but Andreia has been here many times, and she has been doing amazing job for sure. So don't hesitate, okay? Don't hesitate. And of course, as you can see, Natalie added, thanks so much, most helpful. We are happy to hear that, see that as well. And well, we will be finishing, but again, thank you so much for staying with us, for spending this evening with us. Someone is typing, so yeah, thank you so much. That's me. Just show this to Andreia. Excellent session. Thank you. Well, excellent session as always, Andreia, right? So that's for sure. Thank you indeed. And just to let you know, of course, this has been recorded. You can find it tomorrow. It will be available on My IVF Answers, but also on our YouTube channel. So go ahead, subscribe. That way you will be notified that the video has been added. Plus, if you would like to check some of the previous webinars, after this webinar finishes, you will be redirected to Andreia's profile on our site, and there are some of her previous webinars. I'm sure it's going to be helpful for you as well. And yes, thank you so much. Best of luck to everyone. Andreia, till our next event for sure. I'm already looking forward to it. You know it. And yeah, have a lovely evening, okay?
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.